This is the West Tigers podcast, season 6, episode number 237. Something a little different this time. We head back to the ambush event that was held at the Leichhardt Bowling Club just before our round 1 clash against the Gold Coast Titans yesterday afternoon. The special guest was the CEO of the West Tigers, Justin Pascoe, interviewed by Garry Watson, but our own Steve Stretton got in with the first question.
Maybe 12, 18 months ago, we were having a conversation and you mentioned to me how important you thought it was that we get Tigers DNA through the club. And I said this to you the other day, that you can see that happening with more and more of ex-players, ex-staff coming back into the club and talking about what it means to be a Tiger and what it means to play Tigers footy. And Tim Sheen's is talking about that a lot. What does it mean to you, Justin, having Tigers DNA through the organisation, and what does it look like?
Garry just said that's a very long first question, but no, I think we recognised probably halfway through last year that when you're in a certain position on the table, or a position over a period of time where you haven't had success on the field, and you sort of look for the best coach available at the time, and you've got the finances to be able to afford that as a club, what you tend to do, and what has been traditionally occurs in all footy clubs, is that when you do go and get a coach, you tend to invest everything into that coach. So you support them with the style of play, you support them with the standards of behaviour, you support them with the notion of how they want the club to run and the people they bring in. And you do that because you commit to having a head coach. What we recognised over that course of sort of the last 3 years is there was a clear lack of West Tigers DNA. The club enjoyed so much success in the 2003, 4 and 5, and then into sort of the latter half of that decade. And I think what tends to happen, why you invest in pathways and everything else, is that if you can get people that are truly invested and passionate about the brand and the club itself, then you're going to get people in absolute alignment working together. And if you look at the people that are back there now, and there's a cast of thousands, like the amount of people that walk through the corridors of the new facility is extraordinary in regards to the staff that's when I first started 7 years ago. But even having Heino back and Paddy Richards and Robbie and Benji and Tim and Scando, who remains there like an old bit of furniture and we can't get rid of him. But it's just great to be, because they're all really passionate about the club and everyone wants success and everyone's in alignment.
Awesome. All right, well, I'm going to take the hint from Garry. My questions are too long. It's all yours, Garry.
Not only too long, it was one of my questions. So, thank you for coming along, Justin.
Pleasure.
We really appreciate it. My first question for you, it does relate a little bit to Steve's question, is I think over this off-season, we've seen the biggest change in the club that we've seen in a long time. Is this the most change you've seen while you've been involved in the club?
Well, I think the change has actually happened well before the off-season. We made the really tough decision sort of halfway through last year to move on the head coach, which is never an easy thing to do. With that, we made even tougher decisions to move on all the assistant coaches and all the high-performance team, all the medical team, bar our club doctor, and started, rearranging the roster to a certain extent. So, I think if you consider Tommy Talau and Sean Bloor as new signings for the year, I think there's 14 of 30 in the roster that have changed as well. So I don't know if we could have done anything more. We've got a new facility, new head coach, new assistant coaches, new high-performance team, which have been there before. Back to the question about DNA, Peter Musa and his team, a lot of them have been there previously, and pretty much a new roster. So in my time, we haven't made as many changes ever, but we needed to too, by the way, because we finished last, all right, and that's unacceptable.
And digging into that a little bit more, the decision was made to go with a team of Benji, Tim and Robbie. What was it about those guys, and not just DNA-wise but football-wise, that made the club head in that direction?
Well, Tim's clearly a genius when it comes to football. He's almost on the spectrum, which is a positive. So we actually really, I think if you individualise some of their qualities, like Tim's the football genius that we've known with experience, very calming influence around the place. Robbie, the fierce competitor that refuses to give up. Benji, obviously generational player. What we thought about Benji was that, no idea whether he could coach, but what we knew about Benji was that he knew exactly what an elite environment was where players and staff could thrive. He'd been a part of some really special ones in his career, so coming from where we were over the last couple of years and wanting to make sure that that environment was there where players didn't have a fear of failure but rather had that ability to go out and try things and, if it didn't work, still be comfortable that they could then go and play again next week without, worrying about consequences. So, and all three, and add Dave Ferner as another senior assistant in there as well. They've been outstanding. But again, we talk about a positive off-season. We haven't won anything yet, so... But it is certainly heading in the right direction, and the environment is the happiest it's been I've seen in my time.
So you mentioned Benji, and your wording was not knowing whether he could coach.
Well, he hasn't coached before, right?
Yeah. So what have you seen over the off-season? What's your opinion of that now? Has that changed?
And the other thing too, we deliberated and sort of prosecuted this decision about whether to announce Benji straight away. And then we thought, because the media is always so gentle with the West Tigers, we thought, why not actually come out and just say, this is our 5-year plan, put it straight out there. It gives everyone absolute clarity in the direction we're heading. It doesn't mean that people have to second guess what we're doing and start speculating like they're already doing before round one with Paul St George at the moment. What was your question? Because I've just rambled.
Have you seen
Benji.
a coach?
Yeah, so Benji's he's got the ability to engage and have fun with the players. He's unbelievably articulate in the way he delivers messages to the players. He's unbelievably clear in the way he articulates what needs to be done for the day. He's still got that presence about him where most players, even the likes of Appian, still look at him in admiration and awe. So he's been outstanding. He's learning that there's a lot more to coaching than just on the field. He's cutting videos and doing all sorts of things and spending a lot of time in the video room and also spending a lot of time in individual meetings.
So there's been a little bit of speculation around already that he's already taken on a full-time coaching role and Tim's kind of there overseeing it.
He's full-time assistant coach.
Yeah, well, full-time head coach is a little bit of a speculation and Tim's kind of assisting in that. How do you see that?
No, Tim's the head coach. Tim's also has absolutely respect for his role, which is over the next 2 years to make Benji the best full-time head coach. Benji equally is ambitious and working really hard to learn the craft as much as possible from Tim, and so there's mutual respect. When you hear things like, can't remember, it was last week, saying that there's...
Kent.
Did you say Kent?
I did say there was a K on that, yes.
When you sit there and you hear things like there's division or there's angst, there's zero. They've actually got really good respect for each other. And as I said, the four of them are working really well together.
And I actually think the plan of Benji going in as an assistant coach and announcing him as head coach is, we talk about being a development club. That's the message that's come out of the club. There's no reason why the club shouldn't be developing coaches as well.
Absolutely. And not just coaches, like... developing coaches, developing players, obviously developing staff as well, and that's through high performance as well. So, there's as I said, with all seriousness, there's that much spent on the football program these days and within the business that there's people that are transitioning all the way through to all grades, not only coaching philosophies but high performance philosophies. We've got intern programs where we're trying to develop staff coming in through the business operations of the organisation. So we take it with all seriousness, and it's a responsibility that we're very privileged to have, but we're there to make people better as well.
Good organisations develop good leaders, and I think that's the key message behind it. Robbie Farah's come in as assistant coach. I'm sure that's not his end career point. Is it a sort of GM role you see him progressing? Where do you kind of see him going with that role?
I'd love to see Robbie having conversations with player managers. That would be hilarious. No, he's obviously focused at the moment solely on that assistant coaching. Where Robbie goes in the future, he's, I think he's obviously got some businesses outside. He's obviously very intelligent in that space as well. So if that's the path he wants to go down, we'll give him best opportunity to do that. But at the moment, he's solely focused on today and this year.
So we've also had a number of new players come into the club. As you're saying, if you count Talau and Bloor, it's up to 14 or so players. Who are the players that have impressed you over the off-season out of those new recruits?
To be fair, I don't spend a lot of time at training, but in terms of all the young kids actually that came through sort of our pathway system that we signed on as full-time over summer. So the Jordan Millers of the like and the Kits of the like. And when I say impress me, there's been times where they've walked out of their way when I'm doing a tour of the facility and come up and introduce themselves. And for 17-year-olds, that's amazing, I think, in today's world. 17-year-old athletes, professional athletes. So just in regards to their respect, I think that's been really impressive. Appy Coruscant is unbelievable. You'll see today how he engages people, the A and B markers to create space.
So he's playing today?
Yeah, even now, when they're doing a pose, they don't know what he's doing, so it's great. So, I think Isaiah has brought an enormous amount of experience. I think everyone's added. Sean Bloor coming back and Tommy Talau, they're big bodies, huge bodies. They'll add something. Stefano, because we had so many injuries last year too. Stefano missed half the year, so he's been faultless at training. Fanua Pole is in at the Centre of Excellence at the Zurich Centre nearly every day. Like, his work ethic is extraordinary.
He looks really fit. A bit of a rig on him as well.
I don't comment on the players' rigs. You can. But yes, he is fit.
Mentioning the Centre of Excellence, that opened up last year, and what has that added to the club? What has that added to the players?
Oh, look, I think I said it before. I think in the off-season you saw, and I've never seen it before, at the old Concord and the temporary facility, but you saw players coming in with their family, not just players coming in to train, but you saw them bringing their family in and showing them through, and whether it was mum and dad, wife, siblings, uncles, aunties, whatever. So I think that just shows that they're really proud of the workplace at the moment. It is world class, as it should be. It's the latest one built, so it should be the best one if we've done our job half right by taking learnings and best practice. But no, they love it. And, we talk about the standards and the people that determine how we perform, which is absolutely true, but this certainly does help. And not an excuse, but this is just fact. Like last year, they were leaving at 4:30 and 5 o'clock at night because you'd have to leave the temporary facility to walk across to Sintra Park North. Then you'd have to drive to a pool for recovery. Most of the time, you'd have to go elsewhere for wrestle. It's all there. So they're out by 2 o'clock. And I still think, as we all are in our lives, if you're balanced in your life and you've got perspective on things and you're not spending too much time on one thing, you're far better equipped to perform better at that thing. So them getting out at 2:30, I know there's a lot of happy wives at home that are getting their partners back early.
Now, you also announced a couple of weeks ago Centre of Excellence down in Campbelltown in conjunction with Campbelltown Council and a few other government agencies and sporting bodies. What is the West Tigers' involvement in that, and how is that going to benefit the club moving forward as well?
I think it's critical. I mean, we've been aiming to bookend our geographical location with elite facilities for some time. It's not easy to get funding, as you know, especially at the moment. Actually, I think they've gone the other way, government at the moment, in regards to the election coming up, that they're not promising too much. They're sort of tiptoeing around without trying to create too much angst either way. But no, it's going to be incredible for our pathway system, both men and women through there. So 16.7 million. It was a joint submission with obviously council out there and Western Sydney University. So yeah, I mean, it's now getting it up and running and working with council to do that. It'll be obviously council run. It'll be a public venue, as it should be, a community venue. And what terms we have in regards to being one of the key tenants there will be really critical. But the purpose of it is, and part of the funding was, that it's there to develop our young talent and continue to foster participation in rugby league out there.
And it really strengthens that commitment to the Campbelltown region as well.
Absolutely. Preferably we would have liked 300 million for a new stadium, but we'll take the 16.7 and we keep battling for the 300. We'll try and prevent Penrith from getting it once the election's finished.
That kind of leads to a question from one of our Ambush members, and it was about the possibility of upgrades for Leichhardt Oval and Campbelltown Stadium. And it's from Brendan G, and and he thought that a full rebuild at Campbelltown and a boutique stadium here at Leichhardt would be the way forward. What's the club's sort of position on the stadiums at the moment?
Oh, no, we're very clear that we believe that there should be funding for Leichhardt and there should be funding for Campbelltown. End of story. If you remove any political attachment or alliance and you remove any allegiance to this club, just purely from a constituents perspective, geographically, if you're looking at where money should be spent in stadium infrastructure in New South Wales, and you've got $500 million as an example, are you waving at us or no? Thought I was saying something wrong. You look geographically, fastest growing area is through that southwest region. It's not landlocked as a precinct, so it can actually be really utilised. It's got a train line that runs straight to it. Leichhardt's probably the oval that's utilised more than any other field in regards to utilisation, whether it's school, community or professional. I almost think that Manly, because of the fact that where Manly is situated, that they should probably have another 70-80 million to finish off it, because they're sort of, on that point out there, and they might as well finish the stadium, and I'd be putting one in somewhere down south as well.
I think
I'd be giving Penrith a generous 5 million.
Mate, I live in Penrith and I can't see why they're redoing a stadium out there.
Well, you surely can.
Well, I can, yes.
Political reasons only. It's a marginal seat, and it's now a really big marginal seat as they move the boundaries. So, well done to Stuart. But it's promised. We know that things get promised and not delivered sometimes, as you saw with Accor Stadium. Remember, that was 800 million promised, and government decided to reutilise and reallocate those funds. So hopefully the government, whether new or existing, does that.
Now,
continue to push, by the way. Behind the scenes, we're pushing. I don't know if you saw an article in today's paper.
I haven't seen it.
Buzz, great old Buzz. He's written an article about Inner West Council spending 60-odd million on a commercial building in Liverpool and not spending anything on Leichhardt. Was it today's? Oh, yesterday, was it? Yeah. So, again, we're pushing behind the scenes constantly, and the board has resolved absolutely that we will go back, and we would be playing all our games at suburban stadiums this year if it wasn't for the Women's World Cup. But in saying that too, we also got to maintain an exit on those suburban stadiums if no funding goes there, because we can't be in stadiums that are left behind and not fit for purpose.
So at this point, the plan for next year would be looking at the suburban stadiums?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's 6 and 5, whatever mix that is. I'd say 6 Campbelltown, 5 Leichhardt, and then I think we're still contracted 1 for Magic Round. And maybe Tamworth, so maybe it's 5-5 and 1-1.
Thanks for that, Justin.
I think it's a big part of the DNA too, by the way. Like, if you can go back to 2 suburban stadiums, the club made a decision 11 years ago now, 10 years ago, to go to ANZ for financial reasons. Absolutely the right decision for financial reasons, but I think it did separate and dilute the fan base and the membership a little bit. But in the end, it was the right decision for financial reasons to keep the club going.
Now, touching on that a little bit, you've been at the club now for 7 years. So over the last 5 years, what's the biggest difference in the club between what it was like 5 years ago and what it's like now?
I think the fact that we've been able to put a lot of the dreams and hopes and plans into place, so making it actually a reality that it is truly elite now. Elite facility. Financially last year was a really tough year because we made some big decisions around exiting people, and that comes with termination contracts. But, as I just spoke about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, the decisions made back then were financial and for the right reasons. At least we're in a position financially to make decisions that we weren't second-guessing ourselves because of financial reasons. So we had the ability to pay enormous amount of termination payments because it's in the best interest of what we're trying to rebuild, which is what you said today. Oh, but staff. I've never seen so many staff. It's extraordinary. Staff in the investment, like our operational costs now are enormous compared to 5 years ago, which makes it hard, with all seriousness, because if you're investing in all this money in operations to make the capability and capacity of the business better, the whole club better, yet you're not performing on the field, the value of all these assets doesn't materially change too much. So where your expense base continues to go up, your actual revenue sort of stays fairly stagnant. It becomes quite challenging to manage the business. So, the expectation this year is to have a really successful on-field, and there's a few of the majors coming off, so maybe we can leverage some more money out of them.
When we look at that same period, that 5-year period, what's one thing you think the club could have done better during that time to be in a better position than we are now, especially with on-field results over the last couple of years?
There's a lot of conversation around processes about recruitment. That hasn't changed. Like the same process to get players 5 years ago is the same process to get players today. It takes a lot of time to turn an organisation that was financially poor at the time, made some errors in regards to some recruitment for whatever reason, but you don't get them all right, and we acknowledge that. But it's like the Titanic, it doesn't just change direction quickly. And if you have no money, you're constantly sort of up against the wall. And, we're in a poor financial position, salary cap wise. Then we lost some players and we made some decisions that were under the same process, didn't turn out for the club. And so we're back now with probably the healthiest position from a salary cap. I think the strongest roster in the last 6-7 years of my time there. Everything's sort of crescendoing to be heading in the right direction. But if there's not one thing, we've made a lot of errors. We try not to make the same ones twice, but we always, we'll make more errors moving forward. We just try and learn from them.
And I think it's fairly clear, well, my opinion is that we are moving in the right direction now. There's a lot more positivity around the club.
And we do take responsibility, unlike some articles in the paper suggest we don't. Absolutely, it's our responsibility as the board and CEO where the club's going, the good and the bad.
Thanks for that, because I agree. I think the club is starting to head in the right direction. I'm very hopeful about this year, which I think a lot of fans are. So what is next? We've got the Centre of Excellence open. We're looking at building a Centre of Excellence down in Campbelltown. What's the next big plans for the club off the field that we might see over the next 12 to 18 months?
Off the field? Man, all we're thinking about is on the field.
It is game day, so most people are.
No, but strategically, I've told people this story before that, every sort of June, July, we start looking at our strategic priorities and analysing how we went against them every month. We got, a traffic light system that we measure all the things we agreed to do for the year. Very simply, this year is to win on the field was our number one strategic priority. So that's absolutely where the club's focus is. I think everything else is now in a position where it's got a really solid base. So for the next 18 months, you'll see nothing other than every decision. In fact, even when we're in meetings now, if it's not a decision that's going to turn favourably a result on the field, we don't even discuss it.
So talking about that, what does a successful 2023 look like for the West Tigers?
I read Tim's article today, so he was talking about he's not going to make any bold predictions. Improvement, progress, all those words that we all like to use. He's got a great saying that we may get beaten in games, but he never wants to get beat. So in other words, he doesn't want those 40-point drubbings or people giving up. So, we just want everyone to be proud of what we're doing. We just want everyone to be proud, and the players that run out every week represent everyone in this room and all the fans and supporters. So I think you'll see a really different side in the way they attack the game, not just with the way they play, but also with their tenacity and never give up attitude, and building people like Clem. We forgot to mention Clem before. Like Clem's come in, and I don't know if anyone's got preconceived ideas about David Clemmer, but from day one on the wrestle mat where he nearly killed 3 young kids, and everyone suddenly thought, wow, this is how we actually train now. So Tim describes 2 players, now 3. 2 players with red mist at training. Clemmer's got red mist, and Tommy Talau's got red mist, and now obviously the John Bateman arriving, he's got a fair bit of red mist.
Well, and it's really something as a team we've probably lacked over the last few years as well.
I think it's just that leadership. Like he played 19 games for Australia, 18 State of Origins, whatever it is. He's, him and Appy just, when we're in the fight, in the washing machine, they're the blokes that will stand up, and they're the blokes that are already, people like Stefano and Fanua are just following Clem around like ducklings and learning from him. So that's going to be great.
Now, I have one more question. Now, I know what the answer's probably going to be and the reaction I'm going to get, but if I don't ask it, I'm probably not getting out of here. There's been lots of reports around Mitchell Moses and the West Tigers. Is that still a possibility of happening? What's going on there?
I think, well, hopefully you've all seen that we actually have got a line that, you know, I've tried to peddle and tell everyone to peddle, which is we don't really talk about recruitment or retention. So publicly, when and if there is something happening, you'll see the announcement. Until then, we're trying to keep things in-house and be the club that I think everyone in this room wants us to be. Reasonable question to ask.
And I think that's been a big change in the club as well. I think it's very obvious just how in-house. If you have a look at most of the off-season, that story's been around for most of the off-season, and there's hardly been any chatter about it. So I think that's been a big change in the club as well. And I think it's a positive. I think most people will see it the same way. Thank you, Justin. Can everyone please give Justin Pascoe?
And I'll just quickly say before you do, I just want to say, thanks to you guys for organising this. I know that you do push really hard for this. I think it's a great initiative. Ideally you'd love to see 1,000 people in the ambush and everyone marching down together towards whether at Leichhardt or Campbelltown Stadium. And to everyone here, I do really appreciate, and the club really appreciates all your support and patience. And the expectation is for a really good year, and we can hope you're all are proud of us by the end of the year and what we've all achieved as a collective, including everyone here.
Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, can I just say, I think a very open, honest, frank discussion there between Garry and Justin. Once again, let's thank Justin Pascoe for his very valuable time today. Really, really good of him. And keep it going for Garry. Another great interview. He's getting pretty good at this, isn't he? All right. Not like Garry to blow his own trumpet, but he probably thinks he's pretty good at this. He is, yeah.
Justin Pascoe, special guest at the Ambush with Garry and Steve at the Leichhardt Bowling Club yesterday. If you'd like to get involved with the Ambush, the next event is at West Sashfield Leagues Club, April 1st, 6:30 p.m. kickoff, and that's for the big West Tigers clash against the Brisbane Broncos.